Sure.
So welcome everybody. This is our first lecture of the year of 2010 in September. And I'm delighted to introduce Gary Kracoff to all of you. And he's going to talk, as a newsletter identified, simple ideas to stay healthy and improve digestion. So while he was setting up, we had a chance to talk, and I found out that our speaker grew up in a family of pharmacists, and that's his history. So that's where he was raised, in a pharmacy. And from the early days of packaging newspapers to, as he got promoted up the organizational chart, he got to do more responsibility, work the cash register maybe?
Yep, and dust shelves and stock shelves.
So he's well steeped in the world of pharmacy. So I'm very excited to turn this over to you. And
thank you. Okay.
I'll learn a lot.
Hi, I'm Gary. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. If I'm usually, my kids tell me I'm very loud. If I'm not loud enough, just tell me to raise the volume a little bit. I grew up in pharmacy. My parents had a pharmacy in Alston on Harvard Ave, Bailey's Pharmacy, and they eventually retired from there and are down in Florida now, enjoying the hot, muggy weather that we had all summer too. My journey, I went through pharmacy school. I really enjoyed it. I was planning on being a practicing pharmacist my whole life. And then when I got out, I started realizing that the drugs are very, very good, and thank God we have them. But what happens a lot of times is you start off on one drug, then you're on a second, then a third, a fourth, and they're great at helping stem the tide, slow down the slide, but nobody, for the most part, was really getting healthy and getting off the meds. So I started looking around, figuring there has to be something else we can do. Then I got married, and I had my daughter. I have 2 children. My daughter was born, and she had 101 fever. She was a couple of months old, and the doctor said, give her Motrin. That just came out for infants back when she was born. And I remember from pharmacy school, they were teaching us that Motrin, ibuprofen, is very harsh on the liver, and you shouldn't use it all the time if you don't have to. That's finally... She's 22. 22 years later, it's finally hitting the mainstream papers. They're telling us not to use Tylenol or Motrin unless you have to, because it's not good for the stomach and it's not good for the liver. It's toxic to the liver. So everything you take internally, there's a benefit and a risk. So to just take it, if you don't really need it, there could be a downside. So with my daughter, with her high fever, I contacted a homeopath I knew, and we talked for about 15 minutes. He told me what remedy, they're little sugar tablets. I don't know if any of you have ever used a homeopathic remedy. You put them under your tongue and they dissolve. And 15 minutes later, her fever went down. So, of course, the pediatrician said it was going to break anyway. But I look at it, maybe it was, but she took a sugar pellet and it went down, and I didn't give her Motrin. So that got me on my journey. So I started taking some classes, and there were none offered in New England. We're the most conservative area medically in the country. So I started flying around the country, and I bumped into a Dr. Jack Hinz out of Nebraska, and he and I hit it off. He was a brilliant man, and he became my mentor and guided me through my journey, and I finally got my doctorate in Naturopathic Medicine. Now I'm at Johnson Compounding. We merged Bailey's into Johnson's right in Waltham. We've been on a journey there. We've stopped filling regular prescriptions 2 years ago. So we have a health and wellness center that I manage. We have durable medical equipment, and we also have a sterile compounding facility. So if you have a drug that you're allergic to lactose or the dyes, or you need a specific strength that isn't commercially available, we can make it for you, and most of the insurance companies pay for it. So we do custom compounding, health and wellness, and durable medical equipment. So we're having a ball. It's a bunch of hunters throwing spears, and that's probably the first acupuncture. And gee, my neck feels better. I love this slide. Mainstream is finally accepting acupuncture, but one of the things that that really bothered me was there are brilliant people in the world and there's some people that probably can't get home. If they leave the house, they just can't get it together. But acupuncture has been around. Traditional Chinese herbal medicine has been around for thousands of years. And there aren't that many dumb people that generation after generation would keep doing something if nobody gets any benefit from it. So even though we don't have a double-blind, clinically controlled study that shows acupuncture is helpful, for 2,000 years of the whole world has been using it and it's spreading, there has to be something to it. So sometimes we have to go by how we feel. If you do something and you feel better, who cares if you are the only one that works for? Go with it. You're feeling better. This is where mainstream, where pharmacy is. This drug may cause dizziness, chest pain, diarrhea, loss of memory, blood clots, joint pain, and anal leakage. Are these the side effects? No, they're the main effects. The side effect is it may lower your cholesterol. And I just put that in. It's cute. But everything you ingest on a drug side, and you should, if you're prescribed drugs, you should do exactly what the doctor says and discuss it with him. But there's a benefit and a risk. And so if the benefit outweighs the risk, it's well worth it. If the risk is much higher than the benefit, then it isn't worth it, and you should look for an alternative method. And that's the end of the cartoon. Well, I think there might be one more cartoon. Naturopathic medicine. Yes?
Can you turn off the light, then the contrast will be better. We can see better. Yeah.
The problem is that we're filming.
The problem is they're filming it, and if they turn the lights off, they're not going to see anything. I'm sorry. The slides are great. I'm going to be talking about everything that's up there, and they're almost to keep me on track.
I'm going to try to experiment. What if I do this?
No. Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah, except then the camera isn't happy. Okay. So the naturopathic philosophy is to find the cause, treat the whole person, not just the symptom, use non-invasive methods, and use products and formulas that are safe and effective. So the whole idea is give your body what it needs to do what it's trying to do. Mother Nature made us, and she was a smart old lady, and she gave us all the things in nature that we need to stay healthy. And unfortunately, man thinks we're smarter and we can outdo Mother Nature. But a lot of times, all you need to do is do what nature wants us to. Difference between allopathic medicine is the prescription drugs. In naturopathy, the philosophy is the disease won't be cured until the condition is corrected. On the pharmaceutical side, if we suppress your symptom, and if you keep taking the drug and your symptom goes away, you're cured. But you're really not. The problem is still there, and if you don't fix the problem, over time it's going to get worse. We try to get balance through detoxification, lifestyle changes. We want to support the body, let you feel better and really feel better, not just if you have a little arthritis, give you something to numb the pain. If we can get the inflammation down, you don't have the pain, and that's healthier for you. Health isn't just not having symptoms. It's a state of physical, mental, and social well-being. And we're finally bringing medicine into this where you have to be happy in your head, your heart, and your body to be healthy. If it's just the body and mentally you're very sad or you're not out doing things, interacting with people, being physically active, that isn't really that healthy. You really need to have all three parts together. Health can be achieved and maintained when you work to create the optimum function. One of the things I learned in naturopathic school is no matter where you are in your journey and what health condition you're in, everyone can feel better and do better than they are, because we don't really work on that. We just sort of stem the flow of you sliding backwards. But everyone can be more mobile, mentally clearer, slow down the bone loss, have better digestion. Everyone can do better. And the body's not sick because it has a disease. The body has a disease because it's sick. Somebody mentioned that their husband, I think it was their husband, is a doctor. They've never had flu shots, never missed more than a day's work at a time. That's pretty good, because the body is healthy. That way you don't have diseases. So if you can get yourself healthier, you'll be much better off. Now we're going to talk about the number one problem we have in this country is digestion. I want you to think, this is a river, showing a river. I want you to think of the body and the digestive system as a river. It starts with the snow cap way up in the mountains, then it goes to tributaries, then to the streams, then to the body of the river, and then out into Boston Harbor. And that's how the flow goes. Now, if that river had 3 dams in it, the beavers made 3 different dams, and you want to get the water flowing the way it's supposed to, which dam would you open up first, the one at the top or the one at the bottom? You do the bottom one and get the lower part of the river flowing. Then you go to the middle of the river, open that dam up, and it'll flow all the way down. If you open the top dam, all that water would rush down, hit the next one, and there'd be a flood halfway down the river. So just remember that analogy, because we're going to tie that into the digestive system. Life and death begins in the colon. If you think about it, our digestive system, we eat all this nutritious food, we have to break it down, absorb the nutrients, and take the garbage out, eliminate the waste. In this country, in the United States, we use more laxatives and more antacid products per person than anywhere else in the world. And it's been that way for about 15 years. We're number one. We're holding on to that title. And that's really sad, that in one of the most advanced countries in the world, we have some of the worst digestion. There are third world countries that their digestive system works better than people here. This is a picture of the digestive system. It's really one long tube, like that river. It starts here and ends back here. What happens is the stomach, when you eat, you chew the food, it hits the stomach starts rolling around, and it mixes with acid. And the acid helps start the breakdown of the food. When the food is mixed properly and the acid level is correct, there's a little valve at the bottom of the stomach, right here, the pyloric valve. That opens, and that glob of mush goes into the intestinal tract. And that's great. What happens if there isn't enough acid is the food just sits there. And it should empty out in about an hour. But if your digestive system isn't working well, 2 hours later it's still in your stomach. Then you bend down to pick up something and you push on the stomach and you put pressure on it. The pressure has to be relieved. It's going to come up. Or if you lie down at night, if you ate dinner at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and you get into bed at 10, your stomach should be empty. If it isn't, when you lie down, the weight of gravity pushing on your stomach forces reflux. That's why a lot of people have more of a problem at night, because you're lying down. So what the ideal thing is, you want to keep digestion moving. You want to make sure it works the way it's supposed to. We're using more antacids than anywhere else in the world. That lowers the acid level. That causes 2 main problems. 1, the food sits in the stomach longer. 2, when it goes into the intestines, there are all sorts of enzymes from the pancreas and the liver and the gallbladder that get dumped in there, and the enzymes break down the food into little units that we can absorb. Probably longer than decades ago, when we used to go out and were hunters and gatherers, there were more enzymes in all the food than we needed. So we could digest all the food just from what nature puts the right enzymes in each food for us to digest. Our problem now is we don't eat fresh food anymore. The majority of our fruit and vegetables aren't picked locally. They come from overseas or the other side of the country. And 4 or 5 days after they're picked, most of the enzymes have already died. They've already degraded. So what's happening is we're relying on our body's enzymes even more, and we're making less of them because our bodies aren't functioning the way they're supposed to. So then what happens, think about taking your food, taking a nice dinner you made, putting it in a food processor, grinding it all up, that's what we do in our mouth, putting it in a Ziploc baggie, that's our stomach, and putting it on the counter this summer when it was 90 degrees in the house. We're at 98.6 degrees. Within a few hours, the bag will be ready to explode, it'll be full of gas, and it'll smell terrible. And that's what's happening with a lot of our digestion because of the antacids we're taking, the poor quality food, the processed foods, the lack of acid in our system. It's sitting in our digestive system rotting or fermenting. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things, and it's things we should talk about, but we don't. So anyone who's burping a lot or passing a lot of gas, very bloated and gassy in the bowel, their food isn't digesting well. So you're eating and spending all this money on good food, and you're not getting the nutrients out of it. Plus, it's just like the garbage. If the garbage sits in the garbage pail in the garage and you don't take it out on a regular basis, the garage is going to smell a little off. And that's what's happening to our body. If you don't digest well and you don't eliminate well, energy level goes down and the body starts getting toxic. When the body starts getting toxic, inflammation goes up. That can make your arthritis worse. That can make headaches worse. It can make the skin worse. So everything is tied in, and most conditions start in the digestive system. So I already talked about that. The pancreas puts out a bunch of enzymes that help break down fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. If our pancreas is working too hard because we're not digesting properly, eventually you don't have enough of those enzymes, and those foods don't process well. What happens is, to a lot of us, as we get older, and I'm not talking about 80, 90, 100, I'm even talking 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, we usually, as we grow up, there's a few foods we eat and they bother us. Everybody has a food they don't tolerate well. As we get older, the list of foods that are good for us, that we can digest, gets smaller, and the list of foods that we can't tolerate gets bigger, and we're seeing a lot of seniors, there's 5, 6 foods that they can eat whenever they want, and everything else gives them problems. That's not good, and there's things you can do about that. That just means your digestive system is out of balance, and getting it back in balance, you'll be able to enjoy all the foods you used to eat. The liver. Liver's a big organ. It helps us clean up the mess we make during the day. When we sleep and get a good night's sleep, the liver does phase 1, phase 2 detoxing. It breaks down all the chemicals we've breathed and eaten and all the junk that the body has made. When we're getting good sleep, it cleans that out, dumps it into the bowel, and then it goes out to the harbor. If you're not sleeping, which is a whole nother lecture and another issue, if you're not getting good sleep, the liver isn't able to do its work. It can only do it when we're asleep. And so then the body starts storing all this metabolic waste, which goofs up digestion even further. Small intestine, that's where we absorb a lot of our vitamins. The large intestine, which comes up and around, when all this food gets down there, it's a real soupy mush. And that's where the body pulls the water out. So if you're constipated, the bowel isn't moving fast enough, it's just sitting there and you're pulling out more water, which makes it even harder. And so that makes having a bowel movement even worse. If you have diarrhea on a regular basis, what that means is everything is just flying through the system, so you're not absorbing the nutrients well. And so then we use something like Imodium or Lamodal or kaopectate. There's a whole bunch of them. That slows down the bowel so you can get out of the house. You're not married to the bathroom. But that isn't good either because you still haven't addressed what the real problem is, which is the poor digestion. Okay. This is sort of a picture of our digestive system. If you think about it, digestive system is a disassembly plant. It takes all these beautiful complex foods and breaks them down to amino acids, nutrients, to little tiny molecules that our body can use. If the digestive system isn't working, it doesn't matter what you put in here, you're not going to get the nutrients into the body. Okay, so some problems we've had. Common illnesses from the digestive system. Non-food poisoning, there were 135 million cases last year. Food poisoning, there were 76 million cases. GERD, that's reflux, 19 million cases, and now we have a whole new disease state called irritable bowel syndrome. Anytime they put syndrome, that means it is a problem, but it's not a disease state. It's just there's a whole bunch of people with the same problem, so we give it a name and then we're happy. You go home from the doctor, your spouse says, so what did the doctor say? Oh, I have IBS. So now everyone's happy, but they don't do anything about it because there's nothing to do from the mainstream side. Americans spend each per capita, per person in the United States, this is from little kids through seniors, 5 years ago we spent an average of $500 a year on laxatives per person. So in here, if nobody's using laxatives, that means somebody else is spending $800 or $900 a year. Now how sad is that? If your digestive system works, you'd have $500 in your pocket. You could go away for the weekend. Another interesting fact, toenail fungus. 20 years ago when Zantac came out, when we started suppressing acid in the body, there were maybe 0.5% of the population had toenail fungus. Now it's over 14% of the population has multiple toes with fungus in it, or fingernails. And that's because we're fooling around with Mother Nature. She made a real good machine, and we're forcing it to do something that it shouldn't be doing. Okay, 60% of your immune system, and this is how digestion and cold and flu, I can tie them together really nice. 60% of your immune response comes from a healthy digestive system, from the good bacteria. You see the commercials now for Activa, and they show a woman's belly, and it's red and it's swole, they're making it go up and down, and she eats her little cup of Activa with lactobacillus in it, and it shows her in her exercise outfit, she feels great. It really does work. The problem is, years ago, all of us ate, when we were growing up, some of the food from our ancestors was fermented. I know in my family we always had sauerkraut, and that had all the good bacteria in it. And also, I remember going to my grandmother's house, and we'd go out to her vegetable garden, and she'd pull a carrot out of the ground and wipe it off on her apron and give it to us. We didn't peel it, and we'd eat it. The ground had a lot of good bacteria, soil-based organisms that were healthy for us. That's how we kept putting it in. It's like grass seed on the lawn. Now the soil and the water has all this bad bacteria that you never eat anything without washing it. We irradiate all our food to kill all the bad bacteria, but that kills the good bacteria. So as these guys die off, you have to put them back in. And that's where you're probably hearing more and more about probiotics, the acidophilus. They're adding them back into food because we don't, like yogurt. Yogurt, the bacteria makes the yogurt, but it takes time. So what we do is we push it through the factories and then take some man-made or man-generated bacteria and throw it in at the end and say it has lactobacillus in it. And so we're doing better, but we're not learning. The amount in yogurt, if you have a digestive problem, you'd have to eat a couple of quarts of yogurt a day to get enough of the bacteria. And that much dairy would give everybody problems. So they sell it in capsule form. You can just take a capsule every day. What can destroy the bacteria? Poor diet, inadequate water, overuse of laxatives, antibiotics, medicine. The different drugs kill a lot of the good bacteria. We spent 2002 GI-related problems in the United States, we spent $85 billion on them. Now just think about it. If we do what we should do, it's not going to cost $85 billion. We're going to have the majority of that as a surplus. And this isn't political or anything like that, but we'd have all this money we could spend on preventive medicine and health care without raising taxes, without cutting things. We're wasting so much money by just suppressing symptoms instead of doing what we should be doing. And this is going to get worse with each generation because we learned from our parents and what they did. So now we have kids, we're at the store, we're getting babies discharged from the hospital and they're sending over prescriptions for Zantac for infants. We do probably 30 of them a week. Now how sad is that? I know when my kids were little, if they spit up, it was called colic and they outgrow it. Now we put them on Zantac right away. Good bacteria prevent the overgrowth of bad bacteria. By supplementing with the good bacteria, you help digestion, you help your immune system, and we're having a big problem with candida infections. That used to be once in a while a yeast infection. Now people are getting candida overgrowth and fungus overgrowth in their digestive system. That's due to a lack of bad bacteria. Another analogy, anyone that takes care of your lawn at home, if you water the grass, every year you overseed it a little, you fertilize it, and you take care of it, you might have a little crabgrass, a dandelion here and there, but the healthy grass grows and keeps the weeds out. If you don't take care of the grass, the weeds grow. So then if you use poison and you kill the weeds and you don't do anything else, the weeds grow back. So what you should do is get rid of the weeds and sprinkle some grass seed down. That's all probiotics are. You're just putting a little grass seed down, putting in the good bacteria. That'll keep the bad bacteria from taking over. These are two of the real nice parasites that a good portion of us have. Parasites used to be a third world or a real poor area problem. Parasites now are worldwide. Any idea where the best place to pick up a parasite is? In the United States. You don't even have to leave the country. It's at the airport. The handrails on the escalator and the seats in the airplane. And if you think about it, we're all great about using hand sanitizer and washing our hands. So think about it. You get on the plane, you get up, you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands because the bathroom's filthy, right? Mom taught us to always wash our hands after we go to the bathroom. Then you go back to your seat. You have to climb over someone. So you grab the handrails and climb over and sit down. Then you pick up the seat belt that probably 4,000 people have used. You clip it, and the stewardess comes by with your peanuts or your snack. And yeah, I just washed my hands. You just touched the two filthiest things in the airplane. And then you have to figure you washed your hands. I don't know about the women. I think women are much better, but I know men will admit when you go in the men's room, still over half the guys go to the bathroom and walk right out the door. They don't know what the sink is. You know, so very easy to get parasites. If your digestive system is healthy, they'll stay in the background like the odd dandelion and not cause a problem. If you don't have enough of the good bacteria or your digestion is way off, the parasites will flourish. The beneficial bacteria put a coating on our intestinal tract, and they only allow what should get absorbed to get absorbed. They also protect that delicate skin, that lining, from the food. So people who have chronic problems or chronic diarrhea, the bowel is inflamed, there aren't enough of the good bacteria, so even the food you're eating, when it hits the intestines, is very, very irritating. And so the body says, this is irritating the bowel, let's get rid of it. And you have diarrhea. Then you take Imodium, which stops the bowel from moving. It doesn't fix the problem, it just stops the muscles. So then what happens? You have this food sitting on the lining, irritating it more, which makes the diarrhea worse, which is very good for product sales because if that's what's going on, you'll be using more and more Imodium, and that'll help the economy. That was sort of tongue-in-cheek. I don't mean that that's a good thing. Dysbiosis, you've probably heard that word. That means an imbalance of the good bacteria. That can happen in the mouth. Babies get thrush. That's a yeast infection in the mouth. It can happen in the GI system, the vaginal cavity. They all need this good bacteria. What are some of the causes of dysbiosis? And I'll be willing to bet there isn't anyone in here that doesn't have anything on this list. Antibiotic use, stress, antacids, anti-ulcer medicine, cortisone, prednisone, the NSAIDs, the ibuprofen and Motrins, travel, drinking tap water. We put chlorine in the tap water so we don't get sick, so the water's good to drink. It gets rid of all the bad bacteria. It's not a smart bomb. It kills all the good bacteria too. So drinking the chlorinated water, you're slowly bumping off the lactobacillus. But we need it chlorinated because we've polluted the water. It has all this bad bacteria in it. How about high sugar in the diet, alcohol, chlorine in the water, viral infections? If you're sick all the time, the good bacteria die. And so that leads to a higher level of dysbiosis. High sugar, high fat, high cholesterol, a lot of salt, processed food, low fiber, low essential fatty acids, fish oil, preservatives, and the toxins in the meat. There's antibiotics in the meat. This is our typical diet. If you will, this is a list of what you could do to kill the bacteria, to do a real good job. And that's what we do every single day. We're getting much better. We're not eating as much refined food, and we're eating much healthier. Antibiotics, they kill bacteria. That's why we take them. And they're very, very good. They keep us alive if you get a bad infection. But you only want to use the antibiotics when you really need to. There was about a 25-year period, you went to the doctor with a cold, you got an antibiotic. The majority of the time, it was a viral infection. And the cold it got better on its own. The antibiotic didn't help. The kids with the ear infections, the Academy of Pediatrics has finally said 90% of the ear infections aren't bacterial. Don't use antibiotics. But we had kids on antibiotics all through the winter because they keep getting ear infections. That kills the bacteria, which lowers your immune system response, lowers your digestion, and you're getting less food, less nutrients out of your food. We talked about the acid. Antacids. Now I'll tie digestion into osteoporosis. I'm going to talk a little bit about osteoporosis. I have some good slides on it. When you take a calcium product, if we go back to high school chemistry, calcium has a +3 charge and it has to be bound to something. Nature likes balance, likes things neutral. So there's calcium carbonate and calcium citrate and calcium gluconate. You probably see that in the bone products you're taking. Calcium carbonate is the worst absorbed calcium that we can find. It takes a lot of acid to break those bonds, and you have to have free calcium for it to get into the bloodstream. So for years, we were telling people, chew 3 Tums. That gives you 1,500 milligrams of calcium carbonate. You need a lot of acid to get that absorbed, and Tums, calcium carbonate, is an antacid. It mops up acid. So you take the Tums, the amount of acid goes down, and you don't absorb the calcium. So only about 10% of the calcium in calcium carbonate gets absorbed. So that's one issue. If your digestive system isn't working, the amount of calcium you're going to absorb goes down. And our body uses a lot of calcium. And that calcium, if it doesn't come in this way and get absorbed, we have a great storage bin, our bones. So the body will dissolve the bones for the calcium. We need calcium. Every time you move your muscle, it's using calcium. It's just about every biological function in our body uses calcium. So it's very important for it to come in. We think of bone density as a woman's issue, but it really isn't. It's a man's issue too. Women break their hips more often because their bones, they're not as big as men's. But how many of us know a man that hits 60, 65 that hasn't already shrunk an inch or two? And as the men get older, we get shorter. That's bone loss. We don't break our hips as often, but we're shrinking. So we need to be taking a good calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D product, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. You might have a bacterial overgrowth if you took a lot of antibiotics, if you have a lot of bloating, if you're always tired, if you have a lot of food or chemical sensitivities. ADD, if you're very stressed. Heart arrhythmia is not if there's something wrong with the heart, but if you have palpitations once in a while, asthma, allergies, heartburn, reflux, that's all due to poor digestion. And see, the list goes on and on. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't have some of these problems, and they're easy to correct. If your digestive system is off, the Chinese have said for thousands of years, the skin is a window into our digestive system. Anyone with acne, and we have more adults now with acne than teenagers. Acne, psoriasis, eczema, the underlying problem is bad digestion. And if you fix the digestion, the skin clears up. And we don't think of that. What do? We give steroids. That goofs up digestion even more. We give antibiotics for acne. That kills the bacteria in the pimple, but it goofs up digestion even more. So the teenagers that are on antibiotics for acne, when they stop it, the acne is worse than it was before they started. So And it isn't rocket science. All this is very basic, but with all our technology, we don't look at the easy solution. We always look at the newest and the most complicated thing. Okay, so we can go by these. I talked about probiotics. They can help with hormones, detoxification, the immune system, food absorption, enzyme absorption. If you have a digestive issue, first most important thing to do is clean up your diet. Second, take a probiotic. Everyone can benefit. Pregnant women, newborns, right through senior citizens. Third thing to do is if you're gassy or constipated or diarrhea, any of the digestive problems or have reflux, take a good digestive enzyme with each meal. Those are the enzymes that should be in the food. They will help break down the food so you'll get more nutrients absorbed and the products, the body will work better and the bowels will start smoothing out. This company, and I brought things from all different companies, I'm not pushing any company, but Enzymatica, and I have a lot of literature and some samples there, they came out with a digestive enzyme challenge. They don't even want to know what your problem is. You know, we'd like to know so then we can tell you if it's the right product. But they guarantee through the retailer now that if you start taking their Digest Basic, they're giving 30 extra capsules, and they gave us a discount, the store's a discount, so it's on sale. Use it for 2 weeks, and if you don't notice a positive change in digestion, you bring it back to the store gives you your money back, and they replace the product to the store, so nobody loses but them, because everyone can digest better. The odds of finding someone in the United States that has very, very good digestion is a needle in the haystack. Yes?
Question about little kids. I've been feeling great because my grandchildren take acidophilus in yogurt, and now you've dispelled that myth. But would you have little kids taking pills like this?
Well, not like this one. If they're little, they make the same company and some of the others. They have it in a chewable tablet. They have it in a powder that you add to juice, and it fizzes and dissolves, and they just drink it down. There's always a way to do it. You know, little kids, to try to get them to swallow a capsule, you don't want to fight. It's hard enough getting them to do what they should do on a regular basis, so you don't have to fight. It comes in powders, which makes it easy.
And that's a much better way to go than yogurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though you're getting calcium in the yogurt.
But you're getting calcium carbonate.
Okay.
Dairy is calcium carbonate. Then the Activa, those delicious chocolate chews, they're a good snack. They're low calorie and taste good. All it is calcium carbonate.
So but they make calcium citrate.
Correct.
Is that a better choice?
That's a better choice. And we'll go into that now, and then I'll just go over the slides. When you take, for bone density, we have a huge problem. We have these great drugs, Fosamax, and all those wonderful drugs that are great for bone density that we've been pushing for decades. And the number of people that are fracturing their bones is going up and up, even with these drugs. So that should raise a red flag. Something's going on. We've been telling people to take calcium, 1,500 milligrams